Vegas isn't a city anymore. It's a death trap. The Strip burns with fire and chaos, where every shadow could hide a killer, and every alley could conceal the infected. Survivors fight not just the dead, but other desperate humans. Alliances breaking under the weight of distrust and fear. This is Ashes of the Strip, where survival isn't guaranteed, and Vegas doesn't forgive mistakes. Who will make it through the burning streets alive? Ashes of the Strip. The Strip was burning. From the shattered doors of the Luxor, the survivors emerged into smoke and ruin. Neon signs flickered weakly through the haze, their colors distorted by fire and ash. Cars smoldered in the streets, some moving, some still lay scattered across the asphalt. Nick led the way, rifle ready, his eyes sharp even through the sting of smoke. "Keep moving," he ordered. "Vegas isn't done with us yet." Rich whistled for his pit bull, the dog padding close at his heel. "Feels like the whole city's collapsing in on itself," he muttered. "Not just the zombies, people too. Everyone's clawing for scraps." James tugged the chain of the jawless zombie president, its hollow steps dragging along the pavement. "Vegas is a magnet," he said. "Every survivor within miles is heading here, looking for something. Shelter, power, revenge. Doesn't matter. They'll kill us if they think we've got it." From behind, Melissa scanned the crumbling skyline. The Luxor was just the beginning. This city is a death trap, and we're walking straight through the center of it. Ahead, the survivors reached the edge of the Strip. The Bellagio's fountains were dry and cracked, its glass walls shattered. Across the street, the mirage burned in silence, flames licking at the night sky, and from every corner of the ruined city, movement stirred. Survivors, bandits, stragglers, and the infected. Drawn by the smoke and sound, Caleb adjusted his grip on his weapon. This is where sides get chosen. Nobody walks through Vegas neutral. Nick narrowed his eyes at the shifting shadows. Then we choose ours carefully, because one wrong move out here, and Vegas decides for us. The Strip, once alive with lights and noise, had become a battlefield, and the survivors were trapped in the middle of it. Smoke and shadows, the Strip was a graveyard dressed in neon. Flames licked at broken signs, casting shifting shadows across the street. Smoke curled upward, turning the night sky into a choking veil. The survivors moved in tight formation, weapons raised, eyes scanning the chaos. Nick took point, every muscle taut, eyes sharp. "This city wants us dead," he muttered. Rich walked just behind, pit bull at his side, its growl low and steady. "City doesn't care," he said. "It's the people still breathing we gotta watch." And he was right. Shapes moved in the haze, and not zombies, but humans. Survivors armed with scavenged rifles, bats, and blades. Their faces were hidden by masks and cloth, their movements sharp, deliberate. Melissa whispered, "Bandits. They've been watching the Strip burn, waiting for us to come out." James tugged the chain of the jawless zombie president, positioning it in front like a grotesque shield. "They're not waiting anymore." The first shot rang out, cracking across the street. Glass shattered, scattering like diamonds into the smoke. The survivors dropped instantly, diving behind burned-out cars and rubble. Nick raised his rifle, firing a controlled burst back. "They're pushing us into the open. Don't let em." Bandits surged from the shadows, their boots slamming against the pavement. Shouts echoed in the smoke. Some fired, some charged headlong, with weapons drawn. Karab slid behind a broken slot machine left in the street, returning fire. "This isn't random. They've got positions set up across the Strip. They're hurting us." Rich cursed, his pit bull lunging at a charging bandit and tearing him down. "Then we break the line." Mulan's voice cut sharp through the noise. "No, we use it. They want us funneled." "Fine. We drag them into the same corner with the dead." As if summoned, groans rose from the smoke. Figures shuffled forward, drawn by the gunfire, the infected, staggering out of alleyways and broken casinos, their eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. The Strip was collapsing into chaos. Survivors fighting survivors. Bandits clashing with the undead, the smoke and fire making every figure look like an enemy. Nick fired again, pulling the group back toward cover. His voice was steady, commanding through the storm. "We move now, together. Don't stop, don't split. The Strip will eat us alive if we hesitate." And with the smoke swallowing their path, the survivors plunged deeper into Vegas. Every step, a gamble between shadows, bullets, and teeth. Cracks in the deck. The smoke thinned as the survivors broke through a ruined alley, only to find themselves face to face with another group of stragglers. Guns were drawn in an instant, but no one fired. Not yet. A tall man with a bandaged arm stepped forward, weapon lowered just enough to show he wasn't reckless. His crew looked just as ragged as Nick's, but their eyes burned with the same hunger for survival. "We don't want to fight," the man said, voice rough. "Bandits are everywhere, and the dead ain't far behind. You want to live? We move together." Nick hesitated, rifle still raised. "Together doesn't mean we trust you." The man gave a dry laugh. Trust died the same day the world did. Still, necessity pressed harder than suspicion. They merged, two survivor groups weaving through the strip as one uneasy mass. Bandits stalked the streets. The infected howled from the dark, and every second spent standing still was another second closer to death. Melissa whispered as they moved, "This won't hold. Too many eyes, too many agendas." She was right. It didn't take long. The first spark came when a woman from the other group spotted a crate of supplies wedged in the wreckage of a burned-out van. She lunged for it, ignoring Nick's sharp order to keep moving. Inside were cans of food, a pistol with a half-full magazine, and a map. Rich snarled, stepping forward. "That belongs to everyone." The woman snapped back, clutching the supplies. "Finders keepers. My crew eats first." Tension rippled instantly. Weapons twitched upward. The smoke wasn't the only thing choking the strip anymore. It was distrust. James stepped between them, his chain rattling as the jawless zombie groaned. Enough supplies won't matter if we're dead in the street. But it was too late. A shot cracked not at the infected, not at the bandits, but at a man in Nick's group. He dropped instantly, lifeless. Chaos exploded. Guns roared, shouts echoed, and the fragile alliance shattered like glass. Nick dove for cover, fury boiling in his chest. Told you we couldn't trust them. Now it wasn't just the dead and the bandits. It was people, other survivors, turning Vegas into a killing ground. And in the neon glow of a dying city, betrayal became the strip's deadliest weapon. The tunnels below, gunfire echoed down the strip, bouncing off the empty shells of casinos. The fragile truce was gun survivors were gunning each other down in the streets, while the city itself seemed to listen. Then the ground shifted. At first it was faint, like a low rumble beneath their boots. Then came the groans, not from the smoke ahead, but from below. A manhole cover rattled violently before bursting upward. From the dark beneath the strip, pale hands clawed into the night air. The tunnels had opened, dozens of infected poured out, their flesh damp and slick from the sewers. Their eyes glowed with a fevered light, their shrieks cutting through the chaos of gunfire. They swarmed fast too fast for anyone to stay divided. Nick shouted, "Forget them. Shoot the dead." His rifle barked fire, rounds punching through the first wave. Rich's pit bull lunged, tearing down one of the tunnel-born as it scrambled onto the street. "They're coming from everywhere." Rich roared. Melissa ducked behind the charred shell of a taxi, firing into the mob. "We can't hold here too, exposed." One of the rival survivors screamed as an infected dragged him back into the open sewer hole. The sound of his bones snapping echoed beneath the street before it was swallowed by the dark. James tugged his chained zombie forward, shoving it at the nearest swarm. "Use everything we've got. Every distraction counts." Mulan's eyes darted upward. "There's a service bridge across the street by the Mirage. If we move now, we can cut through before they choke us off completely." The two groups once at each other's throats, now fired side by side, mowing down the infected that climbed from the tunnels. The street turned into a killing ground. But for every infected that fell, more poured out. The city's underbelly was bleeding its horrors into the open. Nick gritted his teeth, scanning the chaos. "We move on my signal. Anyone stays behind, they're gone." The others glanced at one another, distrust still raw but overridden by survival. And as the dead clawed their way up from the tunnels, Vegas proved again that it wasn't just the strip they had to fear, it was everything beneath it too. Blood in the fountains. The survivors burst from the chokehold of the tunnels, sprinting across the cracked pavement toward the Bellagio. Its once pristine glass walls were shattered, its grand fountains nothing but dry stone basins littered with ash. Nick led the charge, rifle barking short bursts to clear a path. Inside the plaza they scrambled into the fountain square, the wide open space giving them breathing room, but no safety. The infected spilled from every street, feeding into the strip, their groans echoing through the empty casinos. Rich yanked his pit bull closer, eyes darting across the dry fountains. This is it, open ground. We're fish in a barrel. Melissa dropped behind a toppled statue, her voice sharp. Then we make the barrel ours. James hauled the jawless zombie forward, chaining it to the rim of the fountain. The thing lurched and snarled, its empty face drowning intentionally by a smile. Bait set, James muttered grimly. K-Rab swung his rifle, covering the left flank. We hold here, we might outlast them. The fountains give us angles. But the other group, those half-alives, were restless, their eyes still burning with greed and distrust. One of them broke formation, sprinting toward the ruined casino doors. Screw this. I'm not dying here. He didn't make it 10 steps before a runner tackled him, teeth sinking into his throat. His screams turned to gurgles, then silence. The swarm surged harder. Infected clawed at the fountain walls, dragging themselves over like waves crashing stone. The survivors opened fire, the plaza erupting into chaos. Mulan kicked over a gas can from the wreckage, sparks flying as she struck metal to metal. We light this basin up, it'll buy us time. Nick nodded, eyes blazing. Do it. Flames roared as the dry fountain ignited, turning the plaza into a burning trap. The infected shrieked as fire licked their bodies, the smell of scorched flesh filling the air. But for every one that burned, more pressed forward, crawling over the charred corpses of their own. Melissa reloaded, sweat streaking her ash-stained face. We can't hold this forever. Nick fired another burst, jaw set. We don't need forever, we just need an opening. And as the fire burned higher, the Bellagio's plaza became both a sanctuary and a slaughterhouse. Sit's famous fountains, now filled, not with water, but with blood and fire. The gamble. The fire raged inside the Bellagio's plaza, flames devouring the dry fountain basins and casting long shadows against the broken casino facade. The survivors fought tooth and nail, their weapons roaring, their bodies pushed to the edge. But the dead weren't stopping. They poured in from every street, drawn by the gunfire and firelight, their groans swelling into a chorus that rattled the cracked glass towers around them. Melissa slammed a fresh magazine into her pistol, breath ragged. We're burning out. Ammo's running low. Nick's eyes scanned the plaza, searching for an edge. Then he spotted at the fountain's cracked piping, still intact beneath the stone. Water glistened faintly where the fire had broken through, pressure building beneath the plaza. Mulan, he shouted, pointing. The system still has water. Her eyes widened as the plan clicked in her mind. If we flood the plaza, we turn this into a trap, Nick finished. Carib ducked under a clawing infected, driving his knife into its temple. Flooding the dead won't stop them. Nick's jaw tightened. No, but electricity will. The idea was insane, but Vegas was built on insanity. Rich wiped blood from his cheek, Pitbull snarling at his side. You're telling me you want to fry him with a fountain show? James tugged on the chain of his captive zombie, voice grim. It's Vegas, go big or die. Mulan scrambled toward the broken piping, wrenching at valves and twisted metal. Steam hissed as water burst free, spraying into the plaza. The flames sputtered, then roared higher as the mixture of fire and water filled the air with a choking fog. The dead stumbled, slipping across wet stone as the plaza turned slick beneath their feet. Nick pointed to a downed neon sign sparking against the rubble. We root that into the basin. Let the strip power the kill. The group moved like a machine, dragging the live wires toward the flooded fountains. The infected closed in, their claws raking the edges of cover, their jaws snapping inches from flesh. Almost there, Mulan yelled, twisting the last valve open. Water gushed, flooding the basins until the plaza was a shallow lake of filth and fire. Nick gave the signal. Now, the neon wires plunged into the water. A blinding surge lit up the plaza, sparks exploding like fireworks across the strip. The water screamed with electricity. The dead convulsed as the current tore through them. Bodies twitched violently, collapsing into the shallow pools. The smell of burning flesh and ozone filled the air as wave after wave of infected fell. Trapped in the Bellagio's electrified grave, the survivors stood in the storm of sparks, weapons still raised, waiting for the next wave. But the street was silent now, save for the crackle of electricity and the hiss of dying flames. They'd done it. For the first time since entering Vegas, they'd turned the city's madness into a weapon. But victory came at a cost. Around them lay the bodies of the rival group, cut down in the chaos. Allies, enemies, it didn't matter anymore. Vegas didn't distinguish. Nick lowered his rifle slowly, voice low and grim. We bought ourselves time, nothing more. The strip was still burning, and Vegas wasn't done with them yet. Fractures. The Bellagio Plaza stank of ozone, smoke, and charred flesh. Sparks from the electrified water still hissed, but the bodies of the infected lay still at last. For a moment, there was silence. A fragile, dangerous silence. Nick scanned the perimeter, rifle still raised. The city was never quiet for long. Check ammo. Check wounds. We don't get comfortable. The others obeyed, but their movements were heavy, weighed down not just by exhaustion, but by something darker. Melissa tore a strip of cloth from her jacket, wrapping it around a fresh cut on her arm. Her eyes drifted toward the corpses of the rival survivors. We could have used them. If they hadn't turned on us. Rich spat into the water, his pit bull pacing beside him, hackles still raised. Don't waste breath on them. They chose greed over survival. They got what they deserved. But K-Rob wasn't convinced. He crouched near one of the bodies, staring at the supplies the man still clutched in death. Or maybe they just didn't trust us. Can't say I blame them. We're not saints. James tugged on the chain of his captive zombie, its jawless mouth working uselessly. He spoke low, almost to himself. Trust doesn't win wars. Fear does. And right now, everyone out here is running on fear. The words hung heavy, cutting deeper than any of them wanted to admit. Melissa broke the silence, her voice sharp. So what happens when it's us? When food runs low? Or ammo? Who pulls the trigger first? The group froze. Even the fire's crackle seemed to dim under her words. Nick's gaze cut across them all. His voice was steady, but iron hard. That won't happen. We don't have the luxury of turning on each other. Not here, not now. Rich scoffed, bitterness in his tone. Easy for you to say, boss. You're always the one giving orders. But when we're starving, when we're cornered, you think loyalty keeps us alive. Nick's rifle lowered slightly, but his eyes were sharp as glass. Loyalty's the only thing that does. For a moment, it seemed the argument might tear the group apart right there in the plaza. Then, from the distance, came the echo of gunfire, farther up the strip. Not bandits, not scavengers. Something bigger. The survivors turned, their words unfinished, their wounds unhealed. Vegas was reminding them. Hesitation was death, and distrust was poison. As they gathered their weapons and moved toward the next battle, one truth became clearer than ever. The infected weren't the only threat consuming the city. It was the fractures within the living that would decide who made it out alive. Escape from the strip. Smoke hung heavy over the shattered strip, curling around the burned-out skeletons of casinos and abandoned vehicles. The survivors moved like ghosts, shadows among shadows, every step calculated, every glance scanning for threats. Nick led the way, rifle ready. His jaw was tight, muscles coiled. Keep moving. The strip won't wait for us to catch our breath. Rich's pit bull stayed close, growling low at every shadow. Feels like the whole city's out to get us, he muttered. Melissa glanced at the ruined Bellagio behind them, its fountains still sizzling with the electricity that had claimed the horde. We made it through, but at what cost? Bodies of rival survivors and dead infected littered the streets. Supplies were scarce, and trust had fractured beyond repair. Every step reminded them that Vegas had taken more than just energy, it had taken innocence. From a distance, the faint sound of engines and shouting echoed. Bandits, scavengers, or more desperate survivors. Nick didn't know. He didn't need to. Every threat was the same. Live or die. James adjusted the chain of the jawless zombie president. Keep it moving, he said flatly. Vegas isn't done with anyone yet. Mulan scanned the horizon. There's an exit at the far end of the strip of highway bridge. If we can reach it, we might escape the city's grip. At least for now. The group pushed forward, each step a gamble. The neon lights of the casinos flickered in broken rhythm, casting long, distorted shadows across the wreckage. Sparks flew from exposed wires, and the stench of burning and decay clawed at their lungs. A sudden scream cut through the night. A scavenger group had spotted them, and gunfire erupted. The survivors ducked, returning fire just enough to keep the attackers at bay while sprinting toward the bridge. Rich lunged at a figure rushing them from the side, teeth bared, pit bulls snapping. Nick covered the rear, mowing down anyone foolish enough to chase. At last, the bridge loomed. Its steel frame glimmered under the moonlight, the highway beyond dim and dark. With a final push, they crossed it, leaving the strip hand its horrors behind. But as they looked back, the glow of fire and smoke painted Vegas like a city in purgatory. They'd survived, but the cost was written in the streets behind them. Nick lowered his rifle, voice low but firm. We're alive. That's all that matters. For now, Melissa exhaled, her hand shaking. For now, and as the survivors disappeared into the night, the strip of Las Vegas burned on, a reminder that in this city, survival was temporary, and the next nightmare was always just a street away. The strip is behind them, but Vegas is far from done. Fires still burn, smoke still lingers, and the echoes of betrayal and blood remind the survivors that survival is temporary. Every step forward will test them. Every choice could be their last. The City of Lights has shown its darkest side, and the nightmare is only getting worse. This is Whispers Between Worlds. We upload horror daily.